Good evening, everybody. All to you. Barry, Nick, Peyton, Roberto. Good evening. Sam. Peter. Hello. Good evening. Hi. What's up? What's up? Good evening, Gail. Good evening, Basil. Yeah, big earnings this week. Big earnings this week. Going to be some volatility in the market, that's for sure. Good evening, iPhone 3. Barry. Good evening. Beto. Hello. Yes, we do have the big boys this week are reporting their earnings, which is probably going to create a lot of volatility. And honestly, I was glad to see the market pull back before the earnings instead of after. So I think maybe the markets were pulling back. And if the earnings are good, they're going to rip them. I have a pretty good feeling of that. I'm doing good, Basil. How are you? I mean, we're right at that trend line. That's right where we bounced. Can't really deny that. Give it a few more minutes. I know it's late. I know I started late. I apologize. If you have 15 people, we usually get around 50 or 60. So I'll give it a few more minutes and I'll send out another link. But busy watching it. I haven't watched it yet. I watched the last season, but I don't have the time right now. Just don't have the time for it. OOT, let's go, boys and girls, and non-binary pals. What did they post the earnings thing? They did. No? Yes. Yeah, big ones. We got let's see. Let me just open this up here. Got the big ones. I am watching Arm on Wednesday. Definitely watching Arm. Uh I think they might surprise. Uh and I mean it's just an eventful day or an eventful week. We got Tilray on Monday night, which will probably just be puts. I can't imagine that Tilray or CGC or any of the legal weed companies are profitable in any way, shape, or form. Some of the big companies, Procter and Gamble, Merck, BP, Pfizer. I mean, these are the big S&P and tech companies that are coming up. So AMD, Microsoft, Starbucks is going to be questionable. I'll be watching it. There's some big whales and some 2-year leaps out the money on the Starbucks. So I'll be watching that. Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest usually always disappoints. So I'll be kind of looking at a bearish bias on Pinterest and JetBlue. JetBlue has ended a lot of um, flights to a lot of cities. Especially, I live in Minnesota, and they've ended all flights to Minnesota now. I believe I just saw in a an article to try and cut costs because they're overburdened. So that might be something to look at JetBlue for some possible calls. And the reason I say that is because if they're announcing this prior, chances are they may have a disappointing earnings, but I'm looking at guidance on JetBlue. I think that could be a mover. Boeing is also going to be a big one. And then, of course, you got Meta. and Qualcomm and Apple. Apple, I think that one's going to be up in the air. Um, I think Apple's going to be questionable at best, and the reason I think that is because it's they just don't. It's hard to see where they're going to go in the future right now. It'll be interesting to see how they develop the iPhone right now. And there were some changes that were announced for that, but I don't think that they're going to. I think their earnings is going to be lackluster, but I think that uh, their guidance is what's going to be the big talking point, and I mean, that's just kind of an up in the air one. We don't know what they're going to say, so. Amazon, I can't help but be bullish on. Coinbase, I don't really care about Coinbase, but probably up with Bitcoin. DraftKings and Roku and Block also going to be. I mean, it's going to be a fun week, and then we switch over to oil and energy on Friday. So fun week indeed. Let's check this out. I'm going to hit up ARM just because I'm thinking about it. It's dropped a lot over the past 2 weeks, but it's on a really big breakout. So this was the breakout that had been watched. Um, the bounce in the gap right at the midpoint, the push up, the breakout, the complete run up, and then basically a head and shoulders here. And now we're breaking to the downside, filling in this gap right here, which I believe is from the weekly. Yeah. So that's a gap I was watching. I think earnings is probably going to surprise us, and I think we are going to see that they are still making money hand over fist. One thing I really like about ARM, and I like this company long term as well, is if we look at the financials, this is TradingView. If you come up here, there's three little dots, click more, go to financials, and it's got a nice graphical representation of all uh, the company itself as far as fundamentals are concerned. And one thing you'll notice, looking at the year over year total revenue, we've gained quite a bit. We went from 630 to quarter two, all the way to almost $1 billion in quarter four in revenue. Gross profit also going up. Pre-tax income, operating income. I mean, it's all looking really, really nice. And if we flip over to statistics and scroll down, their PE ratio is a bit crazy right now. I understand that. But if we scroll down, we'll see that they're now returning they're now getting a return on their equity, which is positive, which is good. Return on their assets and return on invested capital, all positive, all good. Their gross margin is 93%, which is a bit ridiculous. Their operating margin is only 2, and their EBITDA is, I don't really pay attention to EBITDA. I don't care. But their net margin has gone up. Let's see how it was looking in quarter two, 18, 25, down to 0.47, 15, then negative, and now we're back up. So I think they might surprise us here. I think they might be like, dude, we didn't make a ton of money. We made like an entire truckload of money. And this is how much money we made. And this is where we're going to put it. I like ARM long term. I really do. Especially since they have their contract with Apple and Hawaii as well. So it'll be interesting. Hello. I like ARM long time, long term. And then looking at the annuals, I mean, they took a little dip there and then they're right back up. But this is one of the nicer things I like about TradingView. And this is free. You can go to tradingview.com and look at any company's financials. This doesn't cost money to look at this. But it breaks it down nicely and then it gives you these profitability ratios. I mean, that can be all you really look at when you're looking at the fundamentals of a company. Is it profitable? Are they making a return on their equity? And what's the net? Because you can make 93% on your gross margin, but if your net is negative, like that's not a good sign. You're not making any money. Net is what's important. So anyway, off to the S&P. The S&P pumping up over the past couple of weeks. You got the nice pullback right into that trend line. The thing that I've been watching on this is we've got these fib retracements from COVID lows up to the new all-time highs back down to here. And then I used an extension to push it out forward. And the next full leg up would be around 609, okay, on this big move from the COVID lows up to the new highs. Oops. Also, I did an extension on this last move too. From October, the big rip into new all-time highs, the pull back to here, and then the new push up also puts us at 609.26. So within, 60 cents of each other, those extensions are lining up pretty nicely. So I have a pretty good feeling SPY is going to continue going up. It's at a nice spot right here where I think is going to continue. Like there's a really good probability of a bounce and continuation up. So I'm bullish on SPY. Tech, on the other hand, they did pretty much fill in that head and shoulders that is up here, right? So we got the bounce up. It didn't get the push back into this gap, but it did get the breakdown below the neckline. Big breakdown below, push into this gap here, and the bounce. So I think we might see buyers start stepping up here. We also have a lot of volume here on this 4 hour. Look how the volume has just started ramping up. We got a lot of downward pressure in prices as far as the big tech companies are concerned. And if they're going to post profits and have some good guidance coming into this week, we've got AMD and Meta and Microsoft, Boeing. We've got some big companies, not so much Boeing, but Apple, Amazon, Intel. I mean, there's a lot of tech companies reporting this week, and they're on a drop. So this could be considered a discount. These tech companies are on a discount. So I would be looking bullish on tech, and that could easily carry the S&P to continue with it. Okay. Diamonds have been going for weeks, and if you'll notice, they got this. They put in this small area of just like a ranged area, broke out of it, pushed up, hit that price target, bounced right at the top of that range area, right at these previous highs. Previous resistance is becoming support now after we broke it. And if you compare the diamonds to the Qs, see the Qs pulling back harder, SPY pulling back not as hard as the Qs, but diamonds still green, baby, still going up. Diamonds are a trader's best friend, right? Boomer stocks. We got boomers. We had some boomer stocks reporting this week as well. Boeing, MasterCard, probably some more that aren't on this list that I'm not looking at right away. But there's going to be boomer stocks. We got a lot of volume coming in on this push. The pullback, not so much volume. I'm expecting it to continue back up on the diamonds. IWM finally stopped me out of my short, and they are ripping, well. So I think we might be seeing a nice rotation coming into IWM and small caps. The only problem is we haven't even hit new highs yet. Okay. We got the breakout. We haven't hit new highs. Everything else is hitting new highs here. The Qs, SPY hit that new high before the 2 week. Diamonds hit that new high. Small caps, well, they hit a new high over March. They have not hit a new all-time high over last November. So they're lagging a bit behind still. I still like them up to 231 off this setup, though. All right, Amazon also right back to that trend line. Hit 200 a couple times those few weeks ago. Was nice. Bezos probably had sell orders at 199.99, which is why you saw so many people talking about him dropping stock. And this is all when he was dropping stock. And now he got the big pullback. So we'll see if it wants to run back up. This I believe Amazon is also now, I think it's maybe about a year, but they're also in the Dow. So if this thing wants to rip up, you can see this at a discount. If investors come in and they want it, we're going to see that continue to carry the Dow as well. Apple break down to the downside here on this trend line. But overall, like that trend line just is straight up, right? So we got the breakdown on a short-term trend line. But in all honesty here, we're still up. It's lining up perfectly with the S&P. It's lining up with the tech. I think we could continue to see we could see some buyers step in on Apple, but their earnings is going to be Thursday after the market close. And I think we might just see some chop all week leading into that. So if I take a look at the 4 hour here, I'm guessing maybe we just kind of like chop up between here and like 226 maybe going into Thursday. So I wouldn't really look for much of a trade on Apple, to be honest. Google, big pullback there, which has been nice. Also in line with this trend line, also in line with all these price targets. Excuse me. This one, I'm a little bit concerned about because that's a big move down. Okay. Uh, and we got to move down. Not only is it a big move down, but it's a big move down under this prior area of consolidation where price had made a new all-time high and then moved sideways and then broke out to higher high. And now we just gap down below that range. Okay. On the daily, there is dying volume as it's going down, but this is still a lot of sell volume. Like people are cashing out here. So I would look for probably a little bit more downside on Google after a little bit of a bounce because that was kind of a nice candle on Friday. I'd watch this gap right here and I'd look for a short right around 170 for a new low. And it would probably want to target these 162s at the very least. So feeling a bit bearish on Google, especially after that move, especially after that gap down below the range of the consolidation. Feeling weak. Nvidia break to the downside. This I believe we're also watching in the staff ideas trade analysis. So I don't know if anybody caught that, but that was a nice breakdown on the swing. Getting the bounce to push up. It was an inside Friday, which would be kind of nice. So I'd look for a break over 116 for a push into 119 on a day trade. That might be I think that would be a nice trade right there. Fill that gap in pretty nicely. I might also make a nice run in that. It'd probably happen right in the morning too, which would be really nice. Meta did get the break to the downside of the short-term trend line, but this hasn't even hit the long-term trend line yet. So I think maybe it might push down a little bit more, but again, they have earnings, I think, on Wednesday. So maybe we'll see it push down a little bit in anticipation. And then once we get there, I'd expect to buy up, to be honest. Feeling bullish on Meta. I don't see any other reason why I would be anything but bullish on this company if we're looking at this chart. Microsoft also, big push to the upside. We're right in line with the trend line, bouncing nicely. Didn't get the break in the close below the trend line. Okay. Increasing volume, kind of in anticipation of earnings. We'll see what they want to do. This still feels bullish. They say that you hear it a lot, trade with the trend. The trend is your friend. The trend is still up. Okay. The trend is still up on the indexes. We're still going up. We've done nothing but go up. So right now, I'm leaning a bit more toward the bullish side. And Tesla, on the other, Tesla got the break to the downside, got the rip to the upside, and now it's just coming right back into this channel that had formed right here. And I extended to the backside here. So to see it coming back into that channel is not conducive to my bullishness. I would feel bearish on this move right here. But see, just taking a look at this weekly chart. We do have a trend breakaway gap there. And another gap here. As this move ramped up, got the breakaway, the measuring gap, and I'm not seeing an exhaustion gap yet. So actually, taking this channel out of the equation, this would not be a bad spot, in my opinion, to take some longs on Tesla and see if we can get the continuation to the upside and come over these 270 highs. If that makes sense. Meta, I'm bullish on Meta long term, but I feel like we might get a little bit of downward movement into maybe 445, 447 heading into earnings on Thursday. but I'd be bullish on Meta for earnings, in my opinion. How long on the Tesla? I mean, the problem with Tesla contracts is that they're expensive, and I mean, shares are only $200. I'd be looking at least 60 days, and at that point, I might as well just buy shares because then my shares aren't going to deteriorate into nothing. So, or what I would do, another situation that uh, could I could take this under would be to day trade it. And then what I would do is look for a break over the previous day's high for a move up into this area right here where price has stopped a few times. So maybe look to day trade 222s to 226s. And then I would look to trade probably the next day, depending on how price looks, the break over 228 and into this big gap right here. I mean, so as far as Nvidia is concerned, here's the levels. So basically 116.70 to 120. I'd look for a move over that. This could be very easily seen as a discount on Nvidia, and it got the nice dip into that gap as well, and it held a fib retrace. So very nice move in my opinion. I'm gonna switch it to the 4 hour here. See if I can find like a trend line that I'd watch. There we go. That's not bad. Connecting this swing high to this swing high. A break over that could also get us a nice move in. Any particular whoa, I fell behind. I'm sorry. Since we dip into oil at the end of the week, what are you thinking for XLE, CVX, and ZOM? Well, ZOM, very nice move right there. Got the breakout of the channel as well. The pullback, the bounce right at that channel, and then the push back up. I look. I mean, this looks like a 4 hour reversal. I think it's going to try and target these previous highs of 123 right in this area. Definitely feels like what it's aiming for. I could take a trend line and just draw a line there for a stop, like a protective stop following this trend if it pulls back. You know? But I think oil companies reporting this week, I think they're going to make gigantic piles of money. That's what I think. We're hitting higher highs and lower lows, or lower highs, higher highs and lower. Oh my goodness, higher highs and higher lows. That's what we're hitting here. So we got the trend shift. Now we're back up. So I'd be looking bullish on ZOM and oil in general. Oh, loaded the boat on NVIDIA. Never load the boat. Load the boat's how you go broke. Any particular calls I target this week for NVIDIA? Really, I would just day trade. So I would probably take an at the money or maybe like a 120 or a 130 at that break of 116. But I'm not one to take like ridiculous out the money contracts that are cheap to try and turn them into 400%. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. The odds of that happening are so low that it's not in my best interest to do that. Maybe I would take like a break of this trend line if we get a close on the other side of this trend line and then maybe swing some like 130s. That could be done, but I wouldn't do that until it breaks this trend line because right now we're in a short-term downtrend. Oh, we're on a week ahead of time, but what do you think is going on with Lily? Lily, I think, is going to continue up. I mean, on the 4 hour, it came down here, but I mean, look at their weekly chart. It's just straight up. It needed a pullback. It had gone up for 10 weeks total. Every every week You count these two here. So 12 weeks, and in 12 weeks, it only had one red week, and that was barely. I think Lily is. I think we're probably going to see Lily hit 1,000 soon, and also a split candidate as well. That's my opinion on that. This is not financial advice. Let's just say that. But I like Lily Long. It's still, there's no reason why I would think that this thing would come down any further. Those are big moves, those are big candles, but we haven't even, like, we're looking at a weekly channel here. We're coming into this previous area right here. Here, I'll go ahead and delete some of this stuff. But this area of consolidation right here, previous resistance that we broke through. Now we're dropping, very hard drop, very quick. But even these 2 weeks of volume don't nearly add up to what got us up there. So I think this previous resistance will become support, and I think it'll probably get like a wick down and maybe like 770s, and then a push back up. And it'll look something a little bit more gradual heading into the end of the year, instead of like, I don't think it's going to take two weeks and be at 1,000 in 2 weeks. I don't think that's going to happen. I think maybe end of the year on Lily. Oh. Last two reports, the stock took major hits. I'm not sure which stock. I don't remember which one I was looking at when you typed that. I apologize. Was that Tesla? I'm not sure. I was thinking 119 or 120s. Joe, thank you. You're welcome. All right. There were a few other ones that I really wanted to touch on. I posted it in staff ideas as well. But EQT, it's got a nice setup on the weekly here. And one of the things I'm interested in watching about EQT is they're an energy company, and their primary energy is natural gas. Okay, so if we look at natural gas now, what do we see on natural gas? I mean, this thing is ridiculous. I mean, natural gas itself is not at all-time lows, but it's pretty close down there. And if we look at the natural gas ETFs, I mean, these are hitting new all-time lows every week. Okay. What's the other one? UNG. Same thing. New all-time lows last week. Okay. But natural gas itself is not hitting new all-time lows. So now we have a disconnect between the ETFs and the actual commodity itself. So that tells me that, I think, in my opinion, that tells me that futures traders are expecting, or basically the futures are turning around, and the ETFs haven't caught up yet. So that's my take on that. So what's that tell me then? That tells me that if natural gas is going to break out here going into winter, we don't have El Nino now for this next year. Winter is going to be cold again here in the US. I assume it's going to be cold again in Europe, right? And I think we will probably see natural gas push back up into this 3.5 to 355 range, and we'll test these previous highs that are this previous support, which broke through and is now resistance. Now we hit a new low, hit that gap, and I think we're going to come back up. So EQT would be a nice stock that I would watch on that. And if I zoom out here, what I notice is that EQT is nowhere near its all-time lows. Well, natural gas is off 40%. EQT, this stock right here, is only off like, I think, 17% from where it was in comparison. So keep an eye on this. EQT, I think, would be some nice swings. Their contracts are a little bit cheaper. But CHK, Chesapeake, also a natural gas driller. Also one that I'd be watching. This one recently IPO'd too, or merged. I can't remember which one it was. But those setups I would watch going forward, as well as Zom, ExxonMobil, this flag break and the push up. I'm feeling pretty bullish on this. If we look at oil, oil is also contracting here. It's got my trend lines are all messed up, man. But it has a nice wedge that is putting in. It's breaking to the downside here. I think it might put in a higher high here, a higher low, and I think we might get a rip to the upside. But keeping an eye on this as well. So if you're an oil trader, there's the trend line I'm watching before it pushed back into probably the 80s. But we seem to be basing here. We're finding a lot of buyers here below 77 on oil. And it wouldn't surprise me if it wants to turn around. And you could trade that using ExxonMobil. We see that that found support going into earnings. So I think that it could continue up as well. SPY, I'm feeling bullish. It's at a long-term trend line here. Zooming out to the weekly. Long-term trend 1, 2 touches, 3 touches. In my opinion, that's a good spot to go long. If it breaks this trend line and it starts putting in new lows below 536.5, I think we're looking at a deeper pullback. But for right now, I'm looking long on the SPY. I think the Qs are at a discount. And I think that's going to continue up as well. But again, SPY tends to be the leading indicator, the S&P 500, over the Qs, over the boomer stocks, and over the small caps. The S&P 500 is the one that tends to hold the most weight. So when you're trading, or when I'm trading, I like to look at SPY and see what that's doing, because that is in turn going to tell me what I think the rest of the stocks are going to be doing. But I still think SPY wants to push into 609 before it changes this trend. Going to keep a close eye on those NVIDIA levels I talked about. Probably take some 120s if it breaks. Yeah, go for it. Scared money don't make money. And I think that was pretty much the big ones that I was watching. I mean, JPM is pushing up. Banks keep pushing up. Burke B and Burke A just broke this big consolidation and are probably going to continue up. This could be a nice trade right here. Looking at Burke, put in an inside week last week. So financials are something you trade. You could look for a break below last week's low for a move to the previous week's low, or a break above last week's high to a push above the previous week's high. And then that's what the entry would look like. Well, we've got FOMC Wednesday too. I didn't look at the news. Probably should have looked at the news, but I didn't look at the news. So the 28th. Yeah, we do have FOMC on Wednesday. I think here's what I think about FOMC. I think they are going to stay with the scheduled. We're not going to lower rates. We're going to stay the course. And if they lower rates, it'll be in September. But if they do that, leading up to it, in my opinion, they're not going to say we're going to lower rates in September, because that's a long ways away. A lot of things could change. Okay. For these guys. So I don't think they're going to lower rates now. Nothing's broken yet. But if things are broken come September, I think they'll lower the rates. If nothing's broken come September, I think they'll keep them where they're at. But I think for Wednesday, to answer your question, how am I feeling about the FOMC meeting on Wednesday? I think they will keep with the same rhetoric they've been telling, that we need to try to get inflation down to 2%, and we will stay the course. That's what I think they're going to say. And we have non-farm payrolls on. And why am I even trading this week? So FOMC on Wednesday, and then non-farm payrolls on Friday with the unemployment rate. It's going to create some volatility, especially with the large cap, the mega cap earnings. So I would not be in anything super heavy. That would be my suggestion. I will not be in anything super heavy. Something like this, cash could be your best friend. In addition, uh, the dollar is still also contracting right here. So it's got this nice wedge it's been putting in. It's contracting, pulled back or bounced it right around the 618. And now we're putting in lower highs and higher lows and just putting in this wedge. So uh, we might see it break out here if they make a decision on Wednesday, but I think it's probably going to lead into more September. Autos, yeah, just some spy $2 calls and see what happens. Have a good night, Beto. All right. Any other requests? I apologize for the lateness. I know it's late. It gets late out on the East Coast for this one. Um, and I mean that kind of is what it is, but I think CrowdStrike's probably coming down sub 200. Target. I'm long target. Got the breakout. I I think it still wants up. I'm still in my March target calls. So I'm long target. Starbucks, I think long term, Starbucks is probably going to end up hitting new all-time highs. But I think right now, I don't think right now is the time. I think they're probably going to just kind of sit here around like 80 and 75. I mean, there's no major trend break here. They're down here. If anything, is probably going to go down to 60. But I've got a ridiculous sleep on target. I think it's 240s. I wanted at least these highs right here, but I wanted more. I want to see a bigger move coming out of this inverted head and shoulders now. Let's go find out. Nike. Nike's a good one. Here's what I like about Nike on the weekly. Big move down. Big volume. Move continues down. Candles getting smaller. Body's getting smaller. Volume going down. Volume going down. I think we might want to take like one little stop hunt down below 70 and then bounce up. Maybe try the 80s, 80, 85s, somewhere in here. That's a big drop. I assume we're going to find buyers here at some point to push it back up. And after a big drop like that, I like to see the candle bodies getting nice and small on that. My target average is I'm in 250s and my average is 33. There's also like no open interest. So I'm expecting more people to pick those contracts up as target rips out. Not you, not y'all. Like more people in the market maybe want to take some, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I got that nice contract. I got a nice fill on it. It's been fluctuating a little bit, but it's been fine. Oh, and KO. So wow, that's a nice move on Coke. I look for a pullback heading into 67, but that's a nice move. So here's what I really like to see happen, right? Uh, we get these big moves, but they're not really over any significant highs. Okay. So we got this one from April 23, this last high before we hit new lows. And we got a big bodied candle that moved over it and closed. That I like. But now this last week, we got this big body candle, nice price movement from 65 up to 67. And we didn't really clear any, we cleared this high right here. But I mean, we pretty much took that out with this move right here. We haven't really cleared any major high. If we got this candle over the previous alt, this high right here, then I'd be super bullish. But to get that candle not over this high from April, March 2022 leads me to be a little suspicious. So maybe in Coke, I would look for like possibly some sideways movement, maybe a few inside candles before it wants to give that nice push, or it just rips hard. So I'd be watching this previous high and mark that out on my chart. See, we're just right there, right? Right there. Haven't quite made the move yet. So that price, 67.20 or so, give or take a cent, would be the price I'd be watching. And I'd want to see it break that price in the morning with volume, preferably within the first 2 hours. If it doesn't happen in the first 2 hours, if it happens sometime at like 1 in the afternoon with some piddly volume, then I'm not going to trust that break. Okay. So I would watch that 67.20 price and see if it can push through it with volume. There we go. Lower time frame, it is kind of consolidating up here. Nice little flag on the 1 hour. See if it wants to push up above these highs. 67.12, 67.10, somewhere in there. Here's where the big volume is. So right around 67.12. Oh, right here. That's where the volume is. And if you notice in after hours, it pushed up into that and then pulled back. All right. So that'd be my take on Coke. I'd like to see it make a move with volume first 2 hours. Big move. Big move. Not just like a I want to see like it push 67.50 and then stay there, not just push into it and then pull back. I want to see it push over and stay there. So all right. Well, that's it. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it when everybody shows up. I'm sorry for the lateness. I'm sorry that this thing runs so late sometimes too. But I mean, it kind of is what it is at this point. We'll see going forward what's going on, but a lot of people on the East Coast in this group, and right. So y'all out in California probably just fine, but those on the East Coast, it gets a little late, especially if you got kids. Maui, even. Okay, that's nice. Thanks, Shanks. Enjoy Maui. I hope things are looking better after all the fires. You're welcome, Jose. You're welcome, Gail. All right. Until next time, as always, this is not financial advice. Use the Discord, use our staff. We're here for a reason. You pay to have access to us. So by all means, use us, ask questions. That being said, be good to somebody this week, and I'll see you in the Discord.